Ladies and gentlemen, host of the new podcast, Last Day, our special guest, Stephanie Wittels Wachs. How you doing, Stephanie?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
We're hanging in there. Last Day is a new podcast that takes a good hard look at the things that are killing us, those massive epidemics we hear about constantly that are hard to comprehend and getting worse every day. Season 1 of Last Day explores the opioid crisis that is now killing more people annually than car accidents. You will hear from people directly affected by the crisis, as well as authors, experts, policy leaders, first responders. It's chilling. It's important. Stephanie, tell us all about it. This is a fascinating idea for a podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. I wish that I didn't have to make it, frankly. But I, like so many people, lost my brother in 2015 to a heroin overdose. And in addition to being a person with an addiction, he was my only sibling. He was my favorite person, best friend. But professionally, he was really successful. He was a comedian, beloved comedian. He invented the word humble brag. If you ever use that word, you can credit that word with him. He wrote for Parks and Recreation, so very successful person, very funny and charming. And, you know, I love him very much, but when we hear about the opioid crisis, it's often reduced to these massive statistics, and that can feel alienating. It can feel impersonal. And so I connected with a woman a year and a half ago who lives in Minneapolis, actually. She's an award-winning podcast producer, and her name's Jessica Cordova-Kramer, and she lost her little brother the same way. And so this show is our attempt to humanize this thing and to sort of be an antidote to this apathy that we feel, you know, while we casually scroll through Twitter. And we think that the way to do it is to make it really personal and to focus on people's real stories. So that's what we're doing with the show.
You know, Stephanie, I'm really glad you brought that all up, because I'm wondering if social media has gone to the point, well, you know, digital in the first place, but certainly social media. Are we not as human as we used to be? And I know that sounds like a bizarre question, but there's that whole element of there's me, and then there's the digital me, and I don't know, it's kind of upsetting to me. You know what I mean?
Oh, I don't think it's a bizarre question at all. I think about this constantly. I think that it really does play into a lack of empathy. It allows this distance between you and whomever the story's about. So for you, you're reading this story about this guy, and you have this computer screen and a little box to type in your comments. And what you're not understanding in that moment is that there's a person, there's a family on the other end of that. And I remember my brother was a public figure, and so when he died, I can't tell you the amount of people who would say, oh, he was a junkie. Oh, he deserved to die. Anyone that sticks a needle in their arm deserves to die. And I'm like, you know, his mom is reading that. You know, we love this person. And so I think that it does have the ability to sort of dehumanize and disconnect. And so, you know, with podcasts, it's this really amazing medium. I'm sure you feel this too, you know, with audio, to feel like really connected to the listener. And so I think it's a good way to kind of bring it back to square one. Like, this is a person who's loved, and we don't want this to keep happening to people.
So the name of the podcast is
Last Day.
Last Day, which is a bit sad, Stephanie, I must tell you. You know, the thing that amazes me, though, is I'm sitting here listening to you talk about this. Just 2 weeks ago, again, I knew the man. I was not, you know, close to him or anything, but my wife and daughter were. A friend of theirs just died of a heroin overdose 2 weeks ago. And I do remember, as a kid growing up in the inner city, pretty rough neighborhood, I don't remember, and maybe it just wasn't reported that way, and that might be why, but I don't remember anybody dying of heroin overdoses in my neighborhood when I was a kid. Now, maybe they did, and nobody wanted to talk about it, but I don't really think there were that many. Yet it's really, really prevalent now, isn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it's part of the crisis. You know, since 1999, we have lost, every single year it's going up and up and up. We've lost 400,000 people to opioid overdoses. And what's happening is that, you know, you hear about the overprescription, which has definitely played into this, of OxyContin and opioids like that. And they're incredibly expensive. When my brother first told me he was using, this is going to blow your mind, but he said he was spending $4,000 a month on this medication. Yeah. And so what's happening is that people are needing to get high because they are now addicted and their brains have been rewired, and it feels as important to them as breathing oxygen, but they can't afford it anymore and they can't get it prescribed anymore. So they start shooting heroin, which is much cheaper. It's much easier to come by. And I think that's why we're in this position now. I couldn't agree with you more. I don't remember hearing about this growing up either.
No, not at all, Stephanie. We were just kind of talking about that whole situation this morning, a couple hours ago when the show first started. It just, that whole idea for me to go out into the street, and I'm sure a guy in a position like your brother didn't go and buy his heroin off the street. I'm sure
he did.
Knew somebody that
he absolutely
he
did.
actually did.
He absolutely did. Yes. Absolutely.
See, because Stephanie, I couldn't do that.
You think you couldn't. That's what's so crazy. You think you couldn't do it, and then here you are, and it's 2 a.m, and you have to get the drugs, and so you put yourself in a situation that you would never in your entire life imagine you could be in, and that's why it's so insane.
No, it is. You don't know what you're getting. You kind of are hoping that what they're selling you is what they say it is, and it'll go smoothly. But man, it's so often now it just ends in tragedy. You don't know what's mixed in with it, even if there is some heroin in it. You don't know how much.
No, that's right. I mean,
gotta be tough.
The fentanyl overdoses have now become this incredibly scary thing. And this is actually what my partner's brother died of. He thought he was getting heroin. He injected 100% fentanyl, and it is 100% fatal. And that's the problem when you have, deregulation. You have people, no one's paying attention, right? So there's lots of progressive solutions around this. There's lots of things that are going to take lots of time and debate and policy and money to make changes, but we have to make changes because the way we've been doing it does not work anymore. And that's what we're trying to do with the show, is to shed light on not just the sad parts of this and the tragic parts of this, because obviously those are front and center, but the fact that it's not a death sentence and that it does not have to be fatal. There are solutions. There are things that we can do for people who are struggling with this, for their families. And that's the kind of stuff that we want to talk about on the show and that we will be talking about on the show.
That is terrific. Last Day, by the way, is holding their first live town hall. It's on October 14th at 7 p.m. as part of Twin Cities Manova Summit in downtown Minneapolis at the Depot. Joining the town hall will be completely free of charge. They'll have local and national leaders on stage, local first responders, policymakers, and the leader of Hazel and Betty Ford's youth program, Dr. Joseph Lee. Big fan of Hazelden here. I will tell you that, Stephanie. I just was invited to do a speech out at Hazel Fest in Hazelden about a month ago. And couldn't tell you what a thrill and a joy that was. It was wonderful.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You meet people in this space. They're doing great work. They care deeply, and it's shockingly hopeful, to meet people who are really working hard to make change. And so, we would love to have people come out to this. And not only that, but we're going to be taking questions, live questions and submitted questions. And we want to know what is your connection to it? Mm-hmm. How are you feeling about it? And how has it affected you in your life? I
think it's a wonderful idea. And I'm really glad you're doing this. I'm sorry for your loss. I don't even know what that possibly feels like, but I know I feel really, I don't know you, Stephanie, but just anybody I talk to that's lost somebody that close to them, a friend of mine, again, we just continue the conversation. We just talked about my wife and daughter's friend, 48 years old, just died. Last year, a friend of mine lost his 22-year-old daughter. It's every year, a few of them that I know personally now. It's got to be rampant out there.
Yeah, it is. And I really do appreciate that. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
Actually, Stephanie, come back. I'd love to talk to you more. October 14th is right around the corner. So if you want to pop on again and talk about the summit, I would love to talk to you again, Steph. Thank you, Stephanie. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
Stephanie Wittels Wachs, ladies and gentlemen. Stephanie, doing a good job. It's very, very difficult. I can't even imagine losing a brother or a sister like that. Man, it's got to be very, very difficult to do. But it seems like at least a few times a year now, someone very close to me loses someone to fentanyl mostly. It's just disgusting.
There's just got to be another way to, I remember after Prince died, I had a chance to speak with Brett Favre about something else, and he said, tell me about this Prince thing, because he said those were the things I was addicted to. He got help, fortunately. But, imagine, I guess to picture it or to imagine it in your mind, you'd have to say, what is something I absolutely love and can't live without? You know?
Yeah.
Like she said, like it's like air to some people. And so to have that drug, and then you think, okay, I've got to get high somehow. I've got to get this feeling, and you know heroin's going to give it to you. Oh my gosh, there's just got to be a way to create something that is a painkiller that is not addictive.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.